Good evening, and thank you for joining us. Tonight, on the one-year anniversary of the first confirmed COVID-19 case in our state, we come together as Coloradans to remember and honor nearly 6,000 souls that we've lost. We want to take a moment to recognize all of the families who have tragically lost loved ones. We can't begin to imagine the pain and the heartache that you have endured. But tonight, please know that you do not mourn alone. We are with you, and God is with you. Psalm 23, 1-4 reminds us, "The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me." Would you join me in a moment of prayer? God, even in the most difficult of times, we know that you are with us, leading us beside quiet waters. And when we go through the darkest of times, we don't have to give in to fear, but we can have hope. We ask that you grant us an unshakable peace to each and every person who has lost a loved one. Amen. At the onset of the COVID pandemic, Governor Polis went out of his way to reach out to the faith leaders from around the state. He and his team hosted monthly calls with 800 plus clergy members. And that communication bridge has been invaluable for all of us who are leading congregations and doing our best to serve our communities. Governor Polis, on behalf of my peers, I want to say thank you so much for the ways that you have led throughout this difficult season. Would you please join me in welcoming Governor Jared Polis?
Good evening, Colorado. It was exactly 365 days ago today when I shared with you that our state had our very first confirmed COVID-19 case. Tragically, just 8 days later, I sadly reported from Colorado Springs our state's first death from COVID-19. On that day, none of us could have known what was to come or what the next 12 months would entail. We didn't know it would last this long, that for so many of us, it would be so long before we could have a safe visit to see grandma and grandpa, our aunts and uncles. We didn't know that parents would have to juggle their children's online learning with their own job. We didn't yet know that a normal get-together like a birthday party or wedding could be so dangerous. We simply couldn't have imagined, we never imagined, not just how drastically our lives would change this last year, but also how many Coloradans would be forced to contract and fight this deadly virus, and ultimately how many would lose that battle. And today we spend in their memory. I can still remember exactly how it felt for me to learn and for you to learn that we lost our first Coloradan. You know, when you elected me to serve as your governor, I knew that it would be my sacred responsibility to lead this state through its great challenges. There's some things that to a certain extent you contemplate as challenges, wildfires, floods, but no leader, I don't think any of us can ever be fully prepared for the news of the last year. A once-in-a-generation pandemic took the life of the very first Coloradan just less than a year ago, and that there would be much more loss to come. You know, we knew the day of the first loss would come when we saw on the news the virus spreading across the world. It could be a matter of days, it could be a matter of weeks, but knowing that it was heading here did not lessen the heartache or the loss. It's a very somber drive for me to Colorado Springs, and all I could think about was her life, her family, her friends, her loved ones, and the immense grief that they now carry, that so many Coloradans now carry. Since that day, 1 year ago, we've lost 5,984 souls in Colorado to COVID-19. And in nearly every case, instead of being surrounded by family and loved ones, they had to spend their last moments alone in a hospital bed, family members unable to be there with them in their final days. With the sole saving grace of modern technology and the ability to video conference or phone. Of course, as humans, since the day we were born, we know that we don't have endless time here on earth. We all know that one day our time will come, as Genesis 3:19 states, "For dust you are, and to dust you shall return." None of us can say when our time will come, what it will look like, but we all hope, every one of us, that it comes after a long life well lived, not surrounded by strangers, not taken by a deadly novel virus, and most certainly not before our time. This has been a year of great loss. With each loss, the pain doesn't diminish, it compounds. These aren't just numbers that are collected and entered in a database or shown on a dashboard or a map. Every number has a story. Every number has a name, a person, people that are left behind. These are nearly 6,000 of our grandmothers and grandfathers, our moms and dads, our brothers and sisters, our aunts and uncles, and yes, in some cases, our sons and daughters. There are neighbors from down the street, next door, the friendly cashier at the local grocery store, the doting husband and father, the veteran who served America overseas only to lose the final battle to an invisible enemy, the maintenance worker in our kids' school, your friends and family, and my own friends, Rachel, Corky, and Nino. They are you, and they are me. They are our fellow Coloradans. I know that at times the grief, the loss has felt unbearable this last year, too heavy a load for us to carry on our own. And it's not only the loss of loved ones that we grieve. In many ways, we grieve a lost innocence, because over the last year, Coloradans, Americans, the entire world has experienced grief and loss in so many shapes and sizes and ways. For some, it's the loss of a job, supported your family, helped send your kids to college, or filled your days with purpose. The loss of opportunities that we were all forced to give up so we could stay home to care for our children or a loved one. It's a loss in many ways of life as we knew it, of the certainty we took for granted in our everyday lives and who we were before this horrific pandemic struck. Each of us has lived a different experience over this last year, but every one of us has reason to mourn. With all change comes loss. With all loss comes grief. But out of our pain, out of our sacrifice, out of our suffering, we've summoned a great internal reservoir of strength and resilience that lives deep in our DNA as Coloradans. Time and time again, we've proven that no matter how often we're knocked down, we keep getting up. We don't quit because we're Coloradans. Throughout our history, Colorado has always shown incredible grit and determination and generosity in the face of hardship, and this last year has been no different. And I've been inspired to see it manifest in so many different ways across our great state. The nurse who shows up to shift after shift, dedicating more time to her patients than her own family, sleeping in a separate room in her own home. Our educators who spent countless hours working to balance online classrooms while getting back to working with students in person to ensure that our children's education is not yet another casualty of this pandemic. The business owners who innovated and adapted to ensure that their staff and customers are safe. the volunteers who spend each weekend administering the life-saving vaccine in clinics across this state. There's nothing we wouldn't do for one another. Shovel an elderly neighbor's sidewalk after a snowstorm. Go out of our way to help families fleeing wildfires or floods. Chip in a few bucks for charity or at a Sunday, ordering takeout from our neighborhood restaurant during a tough time. It's just who we are. Amidst this love and kindness, there's no question that the very foundation of all of our lives has been shaken by this experience. And I know that sometimes it can feel like just getting through another day can be a victory. It's been a year, Colorado. It's been a hard year. And no one's emerged unscathed. We've all felt that pain and made sacrifice. It would be easier to numb ourselves to this pain, to the daily tragedies that the pandemic has inflicted on us, to pretend that it isn't happening. But to do that would only be an immense disservice to those that we lost, whose lives we celebrate today. In order to honor them, we remember each and every one of our 5,984 Coloradans, over 500,000 Americans, millions across the world. And we do everything in our power to take care of the people that are still here and still with us, that we treasure and cherish. As survivors, it's our responsibility to wake up every day and live our own lives as best we can. Because a year after this pandemic came to Colorado, nearly 6,000 Coloradans have died from COVID-19, and they have no days left. And we live our days in their memory and in celebration of their lives. Let them be our inspiration in these dark times as the sun gets ready to rise once again on a hopeful new day. And there are reasons to be hopeful. With each day, we get closer to the end of this nightmare. Modern science has triumphed over the virus and handed us not one, not two, but 3 safe and highly effective tools to prevent further loss. And I'm proud to report that the life-saving vaccine is making its way into arms across the state of Colorado. And let me assure you that I won't rest until every person who wants a vaccine gets one. I'm speaking to you today from the west steps of our state capitol, which tonight is lit up in magenta-colored lights. Magenta symbolizes universal love and compassion, support, kindness, things we can all use more of, things that will carry Colorado through this crisis. In the coming weeks and months, I'm confident that there will be much more to celebrate. But tonight, let us take a moment to honor our own sacrifices and sit with the memory of those who are no longer with us. Now, I'd like to ask everyone at home to join me in a moment of reflection as we remember and honor all those that we've lost in the last year. Please join me in welcoming performing artist Mary Louise Lee, who will lead our moment of reflection with the soulful song of renewal, accompanied by members of the Colorado Symphony, Amazing Grace. Thank you, Mary Louise and the Colorado Symphony, for that beautiful moment of reflection on what we've lost and will never regain, and the renewal that lies in each and every one of us. Thank you all for joining us tonight. There are brighter days ahead, but today is a time for us to reflect on where we've been and who we've lost. As we continue on the path towards a bright new future, I urge every Coloradan to protect yourselves and your loved ones. We cherish each and every day of precious life, and we need to continue showing our love for one another in these final months of the pandemic by being careful. So please don't just do it because I'm urging you to. Do it because you love your family and your friends. Do it for those we've lost. Do it for the future of our state. Wear a mask. Remain a safe distance from others whenever you can. Limit your social interactions. And please, when it's your turn, get the life-saving vaccine. My fellow Coloradans, we know how this past year began. We know how it's gone. But how we build back depends on the actions that we take in the weeks and the months ahead. All of us working together across our entire state. And I have no doubt that we're up for the challenges of the future. We're almost there. God bless you, God bless Colorado, and God bless America.